The Indianapolis Colts acquired Carson Wentz, and that could very well put them in the Super Bowl hunt.
Perfect.
So the big news over this past week, the Indianapolis Colts acquiring Carson Wentz in a trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. I think both teams won quite a bit from this trade. Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles acquired a couple of picks, a third-round pick in this year's draft, and a second-round pick in next year's draft that's very conditional. It could very well move up into being a first-round pick, from what I understand. And the Indianapolis Colts solved their quarterback conundrum with the loss of Phillip Rivers and added Carson Wentz. He's going to reunite with his former offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. Some magic was in the air during that time, and I'm going to talk a lot more about that at length. But first, we need to understand how we got here in the first place. But before we get too far into things, be sure to subscribe and get the bell note every single time I'm dropping a video. I see more and more of you guys are watching, so of course, support your boy, hit the subscribe button. And with that, it's
rewind time.
So the Philadelphia Eagles and their fans packed all their hopes into the number 2 overall pick after the organization dealt their first, third, and fourth round picks in the 2016 draft to end up selecting
Carson Wentz.
Woo! That's what I'm talking about!
North Dakota State University quarterback Carson Wentz with said number 2 overall pick. And, well, things kind of got off to a good start. In 2016, his rookie season, the Eagles and newly acquired head coach Doug Peterson decided we're going to put the new young rookie, the gunslinger, in trial by fire, and the best experience in the NFL at least is by learning firsthand. So 2016, pretty solid campaign for the rookie, but 2017 is where the Philadelphia Eagles and their selection found their legs. 2017, Carson Wentz looked like the real deal, starting off his season 11-2 with over 30 touchdown passes to just 7 interceptions. Carson Wentz was in the conversation with some 40-year-old quarterback out of New England for the MVP race. So Carson Wentz was playing none too shabby. And then a fateful Week 13 game happened against the Los Angeles Rams, in which Carson Wentz decided to try to dive for a touchdown, dive for the pylon, and then Rams safety Mark Barron hit him low at the knees, and after the series ended, Carson Wentz would be panning over to the blue tent, the injury tent, the fateful injury diagnosis in which he tore his ACL on that attempted dive-in rushing touchdown, which unfortunately was called back for a penalty on Lane Johnson. Shame on you, Lane Johnson. But the ACL tear that really just kind of, eclipsed what happened for the entire season up to that point. Carson Wentz's season was over. The MVP race was over. And in case you're unfamiliar with what happened next, the Philadelphia Eagles and their backup quarterback, some dude named Nick Foles, would go on to win the Super Bowl, beating out that aforementioned 40-year-old quarterback. What was his name, like Tom Brady or something? They ended up winning the franchise's first Super Bowl. Nick Foles, the Philly special, in unison with a play call with Doug Peterson. Heck, there's a statue built outside of the Eagles Stadium, outside of Lincoln Financial, that, really highlights the moment. But the Eagles were on top of the world. Head coach Doug Peterson went out and wrote a book. They called it Fearless. Lane Johnson was getting really confident in the media, saying that they had fun winning Super Bowls, and their counterparts, the team they defeated, they could have won all the championships in the world, but they didn't have fun. Lane Johnson just wanted to show that they could win football games, they could win championships and have fun there in Philly. But, after all the victory parades, after all the glitz and glamour in Philly, the dust began to settle, and, well, Carson Wentz still had a torn ACL. Nick Foles might have been the guy for the moment, but could that hold up? And heading into the following season, Carson Wentz had rehabbed and come back from his injury, was able to suit up and go, and the Philadelphia Eagles over the next couple of seasons would remain hurt all the time. His entire supporting cast along the offensive line, along the secondary, receiving core, the running backs, everywhere around the Philadelphia Eagles franchise, everywhere along the roster was getting hurt consistently, and that really just spelled doom for a team that was trying to repeat as the defending champions. But the Philadelphia Eagles had a ton of confidence in Carson Wentz that, hey, maybe 2018 was, just a fluke year, everybody was hurt, but we really like you, Carson. So they ended up extending him on a 4-year deal worth over $120 million, of which 108 plus was guaranteed money. Again, the Eagles just continue to stay hurt. Carson Wentz supporting cast continue to stay hurt, and the offensive coordinator in which he blossomed under, Frank Reich, would go on to take the Indianapolis Colts head coaching job post Super Bowl, to which, offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels kind of got cold feet, would have had that job, decided to go back to New England. Things got really messy there, but alas, the offensive coordinator Frank Reich, the quarterback guru, was gone. And along with the injured supporting cast, along with, the abysmal performances around him, and including Carson Wentz, the Philadelphia Eagles suffered. So fast forward to the 2020 NFL Draft, the Philadelphia Eagles in the second round got ambitious, and they took Heisman candidate out of Oklahoma, Jalen Hurts, to be the backup quarterback. And throughout the entire regular season, Carson Wentz just played awful, just played really terrible. The Philadelphia Eagles never really seemed to get any footing. While, of course, injuries happen, Carson Wentz's performance was so hit or miss that eventually that Heisman candidate got some starts, and, well, Philadelphia and its fans decided to take notice because the dude was exciting. He was flashy. He could escape the pocket and make plays with his legs as well as his arm, although not super efficient. They're working on it. But anyway, this is about Carson Wentz. Carson would stop suiting up. He wouldn't even take the backup role and kind of came off as pouty during the remainder of his time with the Philadelphia Eagles. And all said and done, that just became all she wrote for Carson Wentz and his time in Philly. So let's catch up with the present. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, the Indianapolis Colts decided to trade for Carson Wentz to reunite him with his former offensive coordinator, Frank Reich, sending a number of picks Philadelphia's way, and Philadelphia is still going to eat a large portion of that contract. I'm sure that was a lot of the discussion, was who was going to bear the brunt of this massive contract. The Indianapolis Colts wanted to take as little risk as possible on the monetary side of things, decided to send some picks, and now they have their quarterback of the future, presumably. Now, I know in the title of the video, things sound really ambitious, but there is a huge if, because the Indianapolis Colts' performance as a team comes down to Carson Wentz's ability to not only stay healthy, but perform at a high level with all these amazing pieces around him. The offensive line is anchored by one of the great offensive linemen in the NFL, Quentin Nelson. The receiving core is young, but very inspired. In the backfield, you got Nyheim Hines. You've got Jonathan Taylor, who has emerged as the workhorse for the Indianapolis Colts. And the defense, none too shabby, was top 10 in the NFL last season. So it really comes down to all eyes on the quarterback, Carson Wentz. Is he going to make or break the Indianapolis Colts season? But let's do a little bit of projecting here. The Indianapolis Colts have 5 more months until regular season football is underway. A lot is going to happen between now and then. The NFL draft, free agency opens up after the new league year begins. A lot of transactions are going to be underway, and the Indianapolis Colts are set up quite nicely heading into this offseason, and I'm going to tell you why. So, look, the biggest thing that's going to help Indianapolis and Carson Wentz is the availability of cap space. There's a projection of about $54 million that the Colts are going to have heading into this offseason, heading into free agency, heading into the draft, and all $54 million of that are going to help bolster the roster and put things, as nicely as possible around their quarterback, around Carson Wentz. And I think the Colts, they're going to be an attractive free agent destination this offseason. But let's look at the roster. Who do they need to keep themselves competitive? Starting off, first and foremost, the franchise wide receiver for more than a decade, T.Y. Hilton, who leads that receiving core that features guys like Michael Pittman, Zach Pascal, who is also an impending free agent. Alongside of them, you've got Marlon Mack, who was a nice addition in the backfield. He could be looking for some monetary gains in free agency. He could return, seeing the potential there. Defensively, you've got Malik Hooker and Justin Houston as well, possibly hitting the market, and tight end Mo Alley-Cox. The biggest loss so far for the Indianapolis Colts was quarterback Phillip Rivers to retirement, as well as offensive tackle Anthony Costanzo to retirement. So heading into this offseason, the Colts' biggest needs are going to be the offensive tackle position, the secondary position, most notably at corner, and the edge rusher position to tandem very nicely with DeForest Buckner. So starting things off at the biggest position of need, in my opinion, it's going to be the offensive tackle, the left side of the offensive line, the anchor. And I think the Colts are going to use their first round pick here to draft the future at left tackle. Most notably in this draft, who I could see them maybe even moving up a few picks to go get, would be Christian Darrisaw, the Virginia Tech Hokie left tackle, big physical presence. He's got an anchor of a body on that left side, and I think he has the athleticism to go out there to make some passing blocks in the screen game. The biggest thing that they're going to need to do to coach him up on is just moving those feet a little bit more in pass and run protection. But Darrisaw looks like he'd be a great fit in Indianapolis, in Frank Reich's systems, and I could very well see them going Darrisaw with their first overall pick. Looking at the other positions of need, cornerback, I think they could be looking at free agency here. There's a solid pool of veteran presence here this year, with Richard Sherman, Patrick Peterson, and AJ Boye, in my opinion, being the nicest fits for the Indianapolis Colts, all of which could provide good veteran leadership, could help coach up along with, of course, the defensive coaches into that secondary, can make that defense a little bit better, build that awareness, and be a nice solid addition play-wise as well. Rounding things out with the edge rushers, the Colts, the interior defensive line with DeForest Buckner got after the quarterback a lot this past season, but if you want to anchor on those outsides, I've said anchor a lot in this video, you want to get a really good outside edge pass rusher, and there are plenty in this year's free agency pool. Jadeveon Clowney, Matt Judon, Von Miller from the Denver Broncos, and Shaquille Barrett is the overall best looking candidate in the free agency pool this year, all of which I think the Indianapolis Colts will be more than happy to spend a little extra to go get that outside edge presence. Number one being Shaquille Barrett, coming off of a terrific postseason Super Bowl run with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If the Bucs can't hold on to him, I look for the Colts to go heavy after Barrett. And of course, you've got a couple of other veteran presences. Von Miller, who I mentioned in my last video even, I could see Von Miller being a target for the Indianapolis Colts. That Colts-Broncos connection just seems to go back and forth, and Von Miller would be a nice, savvy veteran addition on that outside. Matt Judon, of course, another solid addition outside with the Baltimore Ravens, could be a nice veteran presence. And Jadeveon Clowney, a little bit more of a wild card here. He could end up being the cheapest of these options when it's all said and done, and I expect him to be on the market for a little bit longer if his offseason mirrors anything like it was last year. But with all that being said and being laid out, Carson Wentz is the huge if here. If he performs at a high level, the Indianapolis Colts could be contenders. If he performs poorly, of course, they're not going to reflect very well. But Carson Wentz is the key piece here. If he can gel once again with his former offensive coordinator, now head coach, in Frank Reich, I think the Colts can be set up quite nicely for the next few years, as long as, again, that performance elevates. They got a lot of cap space. They've got an attractive head coach. They've got an attractive environment. They've got a really strong fan base that is looking for Super Bowl level play. And I think the Indianapolis Colts could really be something this year. But of course, just like any other offseason prediction, there's a lot of ifs. But thank you so much for watching the video. All my social medias, check me out down in the description below. Feel free to stick around, watch some more content. We're really gonna be active a lot during this off season. I'm excited for free agency, I'm excited for the draft, and I'd love it if you decided to stick around and watch some more. Keep up with us. Of course, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe, get the bell on a note every single time I'm dropping a video. I post weekly every single Friday, so of course, get the bell on a note every time I'm dropping that video. But of course, I just thank you so much for checking this out. My name is Tristan Blake Rines, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Adios.